back to American Agenda. I'm Allison Maloney along with Bob Sellers. Head of the Teachers Union, Randy Weingarten, is vowing to, quote, fight culture warriors who attempt to push back on critical race theory and backing the teachers who teach it. In a statement released by the American Federation of Teachers, Weingarten says, quote, let's be clear, critical race theory is not taught in elementary schools or high schools. It's a method of examination taught in law school and college that helps analyze whether systemic racism exists. They are bullying teachers and trying to stop us from teaching students accurate history. But you, the professionals in the classroom, the people who use your expertise to help our students succeed, you know better. We teach history, not hate. So she says it's not taught in schools, but supports the teachers who dare to teach it. Let's bring in our panel for the reaction. I'm confused on what she's saying. I want to start, Jesse, let's start with you. She says, first of all, she says that they're teaching history, and that may be her version of history, because others say this is not accurate history.
Right. The Project 1619 apparently is essentially trying to suggest and teach that the United States seceded from Britain so that they could encourage and have slavery, while in fact it was Britain that was running the slave trade, and the United States was trying to break away from that ideology. But despite all that, really what critical race theory teaches is that you are a victim or you are the oppressor. And to have that anywhere near our schools, that is not history. You are now teaching white children that they're oppressors, that they have caused, they themselves have caused, or their ancestors have caused such great oppression. And then you're teaching a victimhood to Black and brown children. It really is not the patriotic method of teaching so that we can understand the history of our country, what we have overcome, and how great we have become despite those hurdles that we have. So the teachers union is trying to have it both ways. They've also come out and endorsed Black Lives Matter, which is a Marxist agenda, which separates people by race or by religion or by political class or actually fiscal class, such as your rich versus poor. The whole thing should just be they should just let go of this ideology, because as it's called, it's a theory. It is not based on fact.
Yeah, Ford, the teachers union, they're very powerful. Get your thoughts on this.
Well, let's start with the fact that Jesse James just hit the nail on the head. Critical race theory is a theory, not in fact a fact. And what it really is at the end of the day is a heavy dose of racial Marxism peppered with a whole bunch of anti-American propaganda. And I will give this to Randy Weingarten. For several months, we were told that critical race theory was not being taught in K through 12 public schools, and the Republicans were crazy. Now she's saying that indeed they will fight us every step of the way. And I will say that this is the great battle for our children and grandchildren. And the reason is very simple, because when we look at this recent Pew study, we find out that children 18 to 24 in this country are the least patriotic of any Americans. And why? And that is because critical race theory has already percolated into our public schools.
Derrick, she says that they are teaching students accurate history. Do you think that's accurate history, critical race theory?
No, I don't. I'm going to go back to what everybody, Ford and Jesse James, it's a theory. And so my son just graduated from high school, Charles County, right outside of Washington, D.C. Derrick's best friend is a guy by the name of Adam. Adam is white. If they were teaching this critical race theory in these schools right now, I don't think his best friend would be white. And in this article that you sent to us, it talked about they're also going to include Black Lives Matter at schools, a day of action for George Floyd's birthday, and recruiting teachers to hold political demonstrations and teach lessons about structural racism and oppression. Guys, that's going backwards. And I don't think that kind of stuff needs to be taught in schools, not right now.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I was thinking about, Derrick, is I'm older than I think most of the folks here, and I remember when Martin Luther King would teach about judging people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And the underscored message was not to look at people as far as what their exterior was, but to look at what their character was. And now these kids are being taught to look first at what their color is, to look first and make, by the way, stereotypical generalizations about them from what they look like, when I thought that's what we were trying to get away from. Derrick, I don't know what your thoughts on that, but that's what I was saying.
I agree, Bob. You know, I can show you a text. One of the parents, Derrick's best friend, you know, when it talked, I said, you know what, and these boys don't see color. And she replied back, the father replied back and said, you know what, let's hope it stays that way. But I guarantee you, if we start teaching this theory, this critical race theory in these schools, man, we're going backwards, and it's going to create more problems, it's going to create more hatred, it's going to create more divisiveness in this country, all of which we do not need right now.
Yeah, and it will be very deep-seated because from a very early age, I agree with you. I have a couple girls, and when I was little, there was a coworker who was African-American, and we used to get together and play, and one time we had them describe him, and the color of his skin never came up. They described him in many different ways, but that had nothing to do with it. And in fact, there are times you ask your kid when they're describing a new friend they've made, well, what are they like? And it never comes down to what they're. So now they're being taught this at an early age, or could be, and I think it's very unhealthy to start with that. It's like you said, as kids, they don't see the color, and then they're taught that. I think you're taught prejudice. It's nothing that you come into the world with, that's for sure.
Agreed. It's taught, and like I said, if critical race theory was taught in these schools, and Bob, I know I just can't imagine Adam and Derrick being best friends right now. They don't see race, and it's not just them. I think it's what a lot of these students right now in high school, kids just don't see race. They're taught racism, and then it's taught to them when they get into the workforce.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, Jesse, go ahead.
I would like to add that if people want to understand what's going on in the schools, they should go to Christopher Rufo's website, ChristopherRufo.com, and look up what examples he has of it being taught in education. He has examples of what teachers have said in San Diego, Seattle, across the nation about whites and why that it is creating division. We're not making it up on the right here that is being taught in the schools, and yet they're trying to deny it. There are concrete examples. Go to the man's website, because he is the one that really has exposed it being taught in government, corporations, and now in our education.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, Bob, we hear this, we're seeing this in Loudoun County. It really comes down to the parents. It comes down to the parents standing up. It comes down to them running for school board. They're seeing what's being taught in their schools, and it's really up to the parents to stand up, because if they don't, then we're going to continue to see this.
Yeah, I think the problem is that for the longest time, these teachers groups have not listened to parents. They need to listen to what the parents are saying. And the parents have finally figured out, you know what, you're going to have to listen to us. If we recall you from your position or vote other people in. And I think some of these places, I live right near Loudoun County, some of these places actually are starting to listen to parents a little more. And I think the message right now from a lot of folks is stop teaching the first thing you look at is what somebody's color was. I thought we were trying to get away from that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, great conversation. Panel, stand by. Coming up, America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani joins us here in the studio. We've got that and much more when American Agenda continues.
What's that?